Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about something that's probably relevant to any and all of you that are in real estate right now, especially those of you that work as a realtor or a loan broker, those types of fields. But it really will apply to kind of a big picture as a whole and could apply to other industries as well, depending on what you do for a living. So what I want to talk about is a little bit more of a positive spin on the negative direction of everything in the real estate world. Obviously right now we're going through rising rates, inflation, all these negative things. You see a lot of doom and gloom. We had a little bit of a positive sign yesterday with the inflation numbers dropping slightly, rates dropping a little bit, so that was good. Obviously we're way up from where we were last year and the year before, but banks are still lending, people are still buying and selling properties, so it's not a dead market. Do I think it'll get to be that? No. Do I think there'll be better deals to be had? Yes. So I want to speak to those of you that you can be an investor and very well versed in this industry, and you may agree or disagree. Comments below would be great. But for those of you new that maybe don't have a lot of money to your name but are in this business, that's really who I want to touch in this video, because I was you at one point. So if I rewind back quite a bit, I'll pretty much tell it through a story, right? I got into commercial real estate finance in Southern California back in the early to mid 2000s. Prior to that, I was in the Army. Prior to that, I did a short stint as an airline pilot. Done kind of a lot in my life, but there was no money in any of that, and it wasn't the direction I wanted to go long term. So I ended up landing in commercial real estate finance at a commercial real estate loan brokerage in Southern California in Orange County initially. Didn't know anything. While I was there, studied for my license, got my license pretty quick. I was pretty used to taking tests from becoming an airline pilot. You take a lot of tests. So I knocked that out pretty quick. Did a short stint at this Orange County office and then banged down the door, which I'll tell a story on later, of how I got into the brokerage that really started it for me. But when I worked for this second brokerage, I think I got hired with them in 2005, and I was working under one of their top producers, who is now my business partner today, who now we've sold that company last year. And he was making a ton of money. I wasn't. I was an employee, but I was still active. I was learning. I was doing all the deals alongside him. He would do about 80 to 100 loans a year in the commercial space, specializing in 5+ unit apartment financing, which for those of you that know or don't know, it's considered commercial. And, you know, the commissions I was watching come in were like $2.5 million a year, gross commissions. Obviously, a big piece of that went to the brokerage, but he was doing really well. And I was like, man, I want to become an expert. I want to be that guy. I want to be him one day, right? So that's what I set out to do. Committed to that, sacrificed a lot of my weekends and free time just to continuing to learn, build relationships, do more deals. Well, fast forward to 2008-ish, I had earned my way into a position where I was going to be offered a small partnership with him within this larger brokerage, a 15% piece. Now, I was salaried before that. I worked my way up. I was probably making just under 100 grand a year with some benefits. All that was going to go away. I was fine with it because 15% of $1.5–2 million is definitely more, and then it would motivate me to put in more work. So I was really excited about that opportunity. Well, then 2008, 2009, 2010 happened, and any of you that were in this business or industry or alive and knew what was going on in the world during that time knows that the banks stopped lending and we had a major crash in the real estate market. And so when I got offered this partnership, one of the things that I told Pete, that's his name, I said, hey, if I'm going to do this, we got to find another place to land. We got to be able to keep more of our money, because at the time, I think the top tier take home was like 65% of gross commissions, and the company was keeping 30 or 35%. It was something like that. So that's giving away a lot of money, especially for what I saw Pete and myself getting out of it. So he agreed after a lot. He's a very committed person. He stays places a long time. He'd been there well over a decade, but he finally trusted in me. I said, hey, look, all you got to do is show up. I'll have the office ready. I'll have all the phone lines set up. I'll have the agreement in place. You just show up. So that's what happened. I went out, found a space, did all this stuff. He showed up, and this all happened during a big economic meltdown. So like you, and you may be feeling this way right now, I was searching for other options. I had been a pilot, I'd been in the military, so I went to the police department on the side while still trying to do commercial loans. And this police department in Southern California, Torrance Police Department, was looking to hire 8 people, and they had 250 applicants right off the bat. I ended up going through the process, long story short, and ended up one of the top 2 candidates on the list, had a position, was ready to get hired. And during this time, my income had gone from about $90,000 a year. I think the first year when the economy crashed was $18,000. Now granted, I had a lot of student loan debt. I had just enough to pay my loans, and I'd go to my parents' house a lot for food, or my cousin's house, or wherever I could. Stayed in a room in my cousin's house for a while. That's how basically I survived. She was nice enough to just let me have a place to land while this was all going down. Didn't want to move back in with my parents at 20, how old was I? Oh man, 1982, 27? I don't know, something like that. The economy crashed, 27, 28. So that wasn't an option. So anyway, I had this whole plan set up to leave the business, leave the industry. And my business partner at the time, Pete, said, hey, look, why do you want to go get shot at, first of all? I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And then he goes, look, things will get better. What we need to do is we need to be in the office every day. We need to be working. And I was like, well, that's kind of counterintuitive. If no one's doing any business, why am I going to be in the office working, right? And you're probably thinking the same thing. So that's what we did. We were in the office every day, 8:30 to 5, maybe 4. Maybe we give a little more time on either side. But all we did was we reached out to our existing client base. We reached out to our new client base every single day. Again, we maybe did like 5 deals that first year when our normal capacity was like 100 loans a year, right? And so it was very discouraging, but I just put my head down and grinded. And Pete put his head down and grinded. And we made sure that we stayed in front of every single one of our clients. We stayed in front of every single, or reached out to every single new client we could find. Even our largest clients during that time, rewind back, one of our largest clients had 68 buildings, and the banks would not lend to him because they saw anyone who had all of their eggs in real estate as too big of a risk, and they didn't want to lend to people like that. If you were an employee, they might make a loan to you, but if you're a $100 million net worth guy who's all real estate, they didn't want to make loans to you. It was crazy. So we pounded for 2 years. I think year number 2, I made $36,000. I was like, yeah, you know, still sleeping on couches. And anyway, but here's the catch, and here's why I wanted to make this video today. And this is the part that should be encouraging to you. Because we were the ones that everyone knew were doing business or trying to do business during that downtime, guess who was the first one that everyone called when things started to improve? And that's the key takeaway here. The second the market got better, we were flooded with business, flooded. I went from $36,000 that year, and then when the market started recovering, I think I made $250,000 that next year. It was crazy. Never seen money like that in my life. But it was because I did 2 years of work with no reward. I maintained relationships. I made new relationships, just anything I could possibly think of so that when things improved, they knew where I was. We were doing postcard campaigns. We were doing email blasts like every week. People were probably sick of hearing from us. But the second it improved, they all called us. And so we went on, right after the market tanked, to becoming one of the largest volume commercial real estate brokerages in Southern California. So you can imagine you have offices with like 20 people, and we're doing just as much volume as they were when we came out of this thing. So I think what happened was, as soon as the market came back in full swing, we were doing consistently 100 plus or minus loans a year. And that lasted until probably last year. And our average deal size is about $1 million, and our average commission was plus or minus 1%. So if you do the math, you could tell we were doing pretty darn well for a long stint there together on this path. And so that's my encouragement to you. Now, hold on, let me back up. I know you have to survive, okay? I know you have to survive. I don't think this thing we're about to go through is going to be as bad as what it was. I really don't. Banks are still lending. There's still deals to be had. It's going to be harder. You're probably going to have to downsize your lifestyle a little bit. Maybe get rid of that nice car you bought because you were doing 100 deals and now you're doing none. You know, it's going to be difficult, but that's okay, because on the other end, you're going to be doing so much better. But you got to just stick with it. If you can figure out a way, stick with it. I promise you, if you do what I did back then, you will come out a superhero from this thing, because there is going to be a max exodus. I think Bank of America or Wells Fargo, I think, is laying off like 90% of their loan originators or their loan department. I don't even know. I haven't looked into it that deep, but I've seen headlines. I mean, that's crazy. Think about all the jobs that those people are going to take up in other fields. That's going to create all this open space for you to kick ass during this time and take names. And you will be one of the people that, when the volume is back to what it was a year, 2, 3 years ago, you're going to be so busy you don't even know what to do with it. So hang in there. Things will get better. Things might get better sooner than we think. So don't jump ship just yet if you can afford not to. Stay positive about it, but work harder than anyone else during this time. I can't drive that home enough. Then on the back end, you're just going to kill it. So that's all I have to say today. I'm going to dive into all these things so much deeper in future videos. I wanted to get something out to you today just so you could have something to chew on. But that's my story. As many of you know, I am now a commercial real estate developer. I do large apartment and mixed use projects. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the future, because a lot of you have expressed you have interest in getting into that field. That's it for now. Hope you have a great weekend. Happy Veterans Day. I am a veteran. I salute you. Thank you for your service. Talk to you soon.